All right, thank you. Hello, everyone. So my name's Aurelien. We initially raised venture capital to start Escolabs, focusing on, I think, one of the more pressing questions of our time, which is how do you prepare people, including young people, including people currently in the workforce, to adapt to emerging career path. I think one of the big sources of this is the idea that right now a lot of the skills people are currently learning in the education system might become obsolete by the time they graduate. A lot of the skills that are going to be in demand by the time people graduate might not even be known yet. They might be using technology that doesn't even exist at this point in time. So how do we prepare people to succeed in that world of tomorrow? The emerging, I think, consensus in labor economics is that the focus is increasingly on metacognition, and within metacognition, it's particularly the idea of learning how to learn. We are moving away from, kind of the older skills-based hiring, education-based hiring, experience-based hiring, and now more for can we hire people who have optimized their rate of learning. Not how much do you know, but how fast can you acquire new knowledge, especially with the expectation that anyone graduating from a university today is very likely that 90% of what they need to do to succeed in the workforce, they're going to actually learn on the job. So with that, I think as large language models came out, I was very interested in running experiments on myself for how do I optimize my own rate of learning. So what I'm sharing with you here, this is an animation from my personal knowledge management tool. You can see here a lot of dots. Every single dot here is it's a knowledge artifact, right? It's a note or a transcript. Lots of different colors. What you'll notice here with the different colors is the purple is the reading notes, right? I read a report, right? You take one of these, 60-page ILO reports, read through it, leave notes behind, right? And then there's all of these other colors, right, which are going to be related to the other things, mostly work-related. So the reason I'm sharing this with you is what you see here, this is how I used to do learning before figuring out, my prompt chains for large language models. And now what you're seeing right here, this is actually the inflection point. This is from several years ago. This is when I finally figured out how to get the prompt chain in a large language model to work for me. And now you're seeing what's happening is I'm massively accelerating my rate of learning, right? General idea, right? If any of you have been to graduate school, is every day, right, you read the abstract for 20, 30 studies, you deep dive into top 4 or 5, and now you start to apply this same principle for information ingestion. The same way a large language model is going to consume and ingest massive amounts of information, that's the same thing, right? Every report that's coming out, sovereign governments, think tanks, universities, everyone is publishing knowledge on a massive scale. Can I use the AI to help me summarize that? And then I'm going to start to absorb that. And that's going to shape my own thinking. It's going to shape my learning. And I think what you start to see, which is kind of fun and exciting, is that your own thinking starts to shift. As you read more and more, you start to kind of lose track of individual details, and you start to see more the patterns, the trends. This is another view. This is the same thing, right? You can see this is every day, right? These are all of the notes that I'm taking. I do manually encode the notes, right? This is what each of these look like. This is a report, actually a very interesting report, right, about the incoming SME transition due to demographic transition in the U.S. And now this is going to cross-link, right? This is why people use personal knowledge management tools. This is going to cross-link to a bunch of other notes because, again, now I'm shifting away from an individual report, and now it's almost like you're turning yourself into a sort of meta-study aggregator, right? And this, I think, is pretty indicative of what the future of work might entail for us, is humans shifting into this kind of overseer position where we consume this significant amount of information so that we can think ahead. This is how it works, right? So this is the McKinsey report. It's, I think, 130 pages. I think it's got a 17-page executive summary. Also, still too long for me to actually read. And what I'm showing is this is using like the off-the-shelf ChatGPT. You can do it with any large language model. It's really easy to do, and it's probably one thing that every college student right now should be mastering, right? You get the AI to, okay. So again, What the AI is going to do is this synthesis, which I think everybody knows about. So I just wanted to kind of take it to its extreme conclusion and start synthesizing massive amounts of information. But that's only the start, because I think using AI for synthesis is the first step. Now what you're, oh, I think, can we go back to the, yes, right. Let's go back 20 more seconds, sorry. So this right here is the AI-generated synthesis. That's just a faster form of note-taking. Now, this is where we start to get into the real value of large language models. So the prompt here for this one, this is a custom prompt, right? I just put in 112 because the prompt chain has a bunch of different commands. This is going to ask the AI to synthesize multidisciplinary insights and second and third order consequences that are not specifically in the original report. The problem with most reports is that they are made by very narrow specialists, right? A labor economist will publish something, but they don't have sociological background to think about the longer term ramifications. They don't think about capital markets, et cetera. And so this is what the AI is now doing. This is very different from a synthesis. This is the AI augmenting, right? You can see here the AI is coming up with these second and third order consequences. I think the first one's around capital markets, market compression and consolidation, labor market bifurcation. I think that's unfortunately something that gets talked about a lot. The structure of the internet. Number 7 is about, I think this is international relations, right? How people play off in the US-China tech competition, industrial policy, defense innovation system increasingly connecting to the civilian world. I mean, even insurance for robo-taxis, urban design, et cetera. The point here is that this, I think, is one of the higher values of AI that we're not really grasping yet. The large language models are trained on data sets from such a diverse array of disciplines, and we as humans, we want to move away from thinking inside our own narrow box and start thinking about how do we actually start to capture some of these. All right, so I'll start with, so that was my experiment that I wanted to share with you, because I think this is actually what we should be focusing more of our efforts on as lifelong learners at any age. How are we building our own personal infrastructure with and without AI and personal knowledge management tools to really enhance our ability to ingest and process information and develop these new skills so that we can really reach, I think, the people who are going to succeed in the future of work, which is the people who can learn the fastest. Now, the other thing that I wanted to share is part of the barrier to learning is just that many of us are time poor, right? You have, if you're in school, you have schoolwork. If you're at work, you have work. So what I'm sharing with you, this is what AI is used in the workforce, right? This is a complete end-to-end automation. This is a data analysis. So we ran, does the data cleaning, does the data analysis, and now it's generating a PowerPoint report, right? This is what I used to do before AI. I used to do this. This is, by the way, in real time. This is not like, like a time lapse. This is just a screen recording, because the AI is the one that analyzes the information and then runs a script to fill out the PowerPoint with the insights, and then there's a couple of macros to clean up the formatting. This is important because prior to this, something like data analysis and reporting probably took a couple of hours. Now it just runs in the background, right? It takes like a couple of minutes. It just runs in the background. If someone asks me, can you run the report? Can you run the numbers? Can you create 20 reports? I can run them simultaneously. I'll have 20 reports done for you in 10 minutes, right? This is important because this is what you use AI for. Is first, you automate the work that you currently have. As you do that, you reclaim your time. What do you do when you reclaim your time? Now you can invest that time in learning. The more you learn, the more you also learn how to do other types of automation, so you automate more of that, and over time you fall into this positive feedback loop where the more you automate your time with AI, the more time you have to learn new things, which allows you to automate more, and very soon you get into this realm, which I hope all professionals go to, where everything in your work that is a repetitive task, anything that has a clear, what is called routine cognitive labor element, gets automated, which frees up a lot of your time. For some people, it might free up anywhere from 50 to 80% of your time. And what do you do then? Well, what you do then is, I think, this idea called job crafting, where you start to define your work. You start to say, now that I've eliminated everything that is generally expected of me in my job description, all of that just runs on a couple of agents. I do some performance management, but that doesn't take a huge amount of time. So then I move towards figuring out what I want to do next, right? And this is where things like for me, I want to get it more into writing, right? So I'm trying to do the thing of writing, 6 articles per week, which would have been impossible before. But if I'm spending, 3 hours per day, now that most things are automated, just learning, reading, I want to share back my thoughts, I can do this type of thing. And I'll end on that because I think it's very important. I think there is this fear that if AI is going to automate a lot of the repetitive work, the truth is the way repetitive work happens is that someone kind of gives you this list of tasks, you carry it out, and we structured this economy around people kind of working like machines where we just go through the tasks, and now we have machines that are much better at being machines than humans. And that's where I think we as humans, we need to shift away from this idea that I'm going to have a task-based professional or academic life, and instead think about, as a human, where are my passions? The passions are the thing that you can sustain your drive to learn about, become the expert in, and then the more you learn, the more you can actually envision what comes next. Once you've automated the way that these jobs are currently done, what is the next wave of jobs? And the next wave of jobs is going to come around from people who have the imagination and the access to information to figure out what comes next. As long as we have problems in this society, in this country, in this world, on this planet, there's always going to be things that need to be done. But what's going to happen is we're going to need to move away from the things that are already done, which we can increasingly automate, and into whatever is the next wave of things. And so I'm very happy to have followed Kaya Founders, because that's exactly, I think, a lot of where we need to all start thinking less like robots and more like let's say, startup founders, people who are actually innovating. Thank you very much.